What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Just going to give it another 2 or 3 seconds. All right, so we are live. So what? My last video, I showed you guys passing my state exam. So I'm so happy that I was able to accomplish that. So Monday I started with the insurance company that I'm with. Went through a lot of training, got set up. So I'm pretty much ready to go to get things going. So in this first episode, we're going to talk about some common life insurance questions that a lot of people have. So I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'm going to go over a couple. So the first common life insurance question that people have is, why should I get an individual life insurance policy when I already have life insurance at my job? Okay. So that's number one. And then number two, how can I get the most affordable life insurance? How can I get life insurance that's at the cheapest? So I'm going to actually give you guys some intel. So let's go ahead and start with, when can I actually get the most affordable insurance? Well, here's the simple answer. The younger you are, the cheaper life insurance is, especially if you get term insurance, okay? Why is that? Well, first thing you got to understand is you got to understand the life insurance, insurance company's perspective, okay? When they are doing underwriting, there's a lot of things that they look at to determine how much of a risk that person is. First of all, they look at their age, how old they are. Second of all, they look at their health. Third of all, they look at their lifestyle, their hobbies, so on and so forth. So what they do is they look at what they call the law of large numbers. They basically look at the overall statistic data of the mortality of deaths that happen based on people's health, based on people's lifestyle, so on and so forth. Based on those numbers, that's how they're able to determine how much of a risk that person is. So the insurance company looks at it this way. The older the person is, the more likely their health is going to decline, or they're going to get some kind of disease, or something is going to happen to them. So based on that risk, the insurance company looks at it and says, okay, if this person is older and they're dealing with certain health issues, either we're going to charge them a higher premium, which is the monthly bill for life insurance, that's the verbiage for it, or we're just going to flat out deny them because they're too much of a risk, okay? If they look at a person's lifestyle and they see that their lifestyle is too much of a risk, they're either going to deny them, or if they feel like that their lifestyle is a lot of a risk but they can handle it, they're going to charge a higher premium, okay? And then there's a lot of other factors that insurance companies look at to really determine how much a month a person is going to pay in insurance. Now, of course, there's different payment modes and different payment frequencies. A person could pay monthly, they could pay quarterly, they could pay annually, okay? But we're just going to talk about monthly, okay? So word on the street is, if you're the type of person that's asking and saying, how can I get affordable life policy? You want to get it as young as you are. The younger you are, the cheaper the insurance is. Now, here's the thing. With term insurance is a lot cheaper than whole life. So if you're 20-something years old, that's the best time to get term insurance. I remember I got a term insurance policy years ago, and I was only paying $20 a month. And I believe I had $100,000 in coverage. I had a good amount. That's because the insurance company looked at me and says, okay, he's young and healthy. His lifestyle is not too much, so it's not too much of a risk to us. So we're not going to charge him a huge premium. Now, if I decide to go with whole life, it may have been a little bit more expensive, but not that much more expensive. Why? Because I'm a lot younger. The insurance company looks at age, health, and lifestyle to determine how much they're going to charge a person for a life insurance policy. So that's the answer to the question. If you ever asked yourself, how can I get an affordable policy? Get it as young as you can. And here's the other thing too. The reason why you want to get as young as you can is because the older you are, the more health problems you might get, which will make it harder for you to pass underwriting, depending on what you have or what type of sickness you have. Because when you go through underwriting, they're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to really want to figure out your health history, especially if you're asking for a lot of life insurance coverage. They're going to require a medical exam. They're going to want to look at your urine to make sure you're not on some crazy crack. They're going to look at your blood to make sure everything is right, because they want to make sure that when they give you that huge amount of coverage, they want to make sure it's going to be a proper risk, because they're at risk as well. Okay. Now let's talk about the second most common question that people have. And they say, okay, I have life insurance with my job. Why do I need an individual policy? So first things first is that if you have life insurance with your job, you do not control it. You do not own it. Why? Because a life insurance policy with your employer is controlled by them. That's their expense. Okay. So they're purchasing the policy, because by law, if an employer has a certain amount of employees, they are required to offer benefits, and the benefits are disability insurance, health insurance, and life insurance. Okay. So the employer controls it. So that's the first problem. You don't control it. So if that life insurance gets too expensive for that employer's expense, they can cut it just to save their business, because it's too expensive for them. If they want to change the components of the policy, they can change it. And then sometimes with the life insurance with the job, it's not enough coverage. So even if there's a loss and that person is able to have it, it's not enough to really cover an astronomical loss. So that's why having an independent policy is important, because now you control it. You control the beneficiaries. You control who gets the money. You control what you want in it. You control how much coverage you need for your situation. That's why it's very important to have an individual policy. Because in this day and age, there's too many things that can happen, financial risk that can happen, to where having a policy just for work that you don't control can be a big, giant problem. When you look at what's going on right now, even since COVID, a lot of people has been dealing with job layoffs. So the thing about it is, if you get laid off your job and get fired, that coverage is gone. What if the next day you get into a car accident, or your significant other gets into a car accident? You ain't covered. So that's why it's good to get educated on these certain things, because it's understandable. People think, I got good benefits. I got a good life insurance policy. Yeah, you do. but you can't control it while you're at work. But if your coworker lies on you and gets you fired, or your boss doesn't like you and gets you fired, or you get laid off, that coverage is gone. And then if something happens the very next day, well, your family is going to be dishing out barbecue plates, GoFundMes, or they're going to have to dig into their savings if they have it to cover that loss. When you look at burial costs, they can go anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. If you're talking about losing income, now that's when the real problem happens, because when a person loses income, it can create a lot of dangerous scenarios for the surviving spouse or the surviving person. It could be the difference between that person losing a home and having to live in a neighborhood where it's more crime. Maybe there's a sex offender next door that you have to worry about now. Living in an apartment or a place that's not as kept up. So now you got to deal with roaches and rats. The income is gone. So then the surviving spouse may have to work 2 to 3 jobs, which could be extremely stressful. And now that person doesn't have time for their children or to address their health or their mental health. So income replacement is very important. So a lot of people ask these questions because they really are curious about what's going on. And it's important to have people who are experienced and know these things, like myself, to give people clarity on why certain things need to be explained. So that way people know how to move forward and address any financial gaps that can really create a bad situation when a financial risk hits. So that's the first episode of the Financial Education Center. That's something that I really want to put out there. I've been on Threads probably maybe for 2 months, and I've noticed a lot of people said, I have a life insurance policy, but I want to cancel it and get a more affordable policy. That's the worst thing you can do. Now, if an agent is able to help you do that, even with your current age and your current health, and you're able to get a better rate, then great. But make sure you get that and know that for sure before you give up that policy. Because the worst thing in the world is to cancel your policy thinking that the new policy is going to go through, and then the insurance company figures out something about your health or your lifestyle, and then they charge you a higher premium, or they're like, nope. And then the worst thing is that, and this is a jail, okay? The worst thing in the world is that you get denied by an insurance company, and other insurance companies find out about it. Now they're wondering, why is he getting denied? We need to check him out. Because what insurance companies do is, and they do this to protect themselves, which is a good thing because they have to make sure that they don't go bankrupt. They actually share reports with other insurers through the MIB. And when they do that, they share information about a person's health history and all that other stuff. And they do that to protect themselves. So that's why it's very important that you make sure that if you do have life insurance, be very careful before you cancel your policy just because you want a cheaper one. If you don't have life insurance, get it as young as you can. So that way, that financial risk hits. You don't have to worry about living in a worse place where you have to live with the roaches and the rats. And I'm not even trying to be funny. Or living in an apartment building where it's always flooded. You have to worry about the roof caving in. I mean, these are things that people have to think about because these are things that people face when they're not properly protected. So again, this is the first episode of the Financial Education Center, and I will be going over some other things in the future. So stay subscribed, follow, and get educated. Enjoy your weekend, guys.